I think it's fair to say that both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal have been very well received by the gaming community, bringing the series back with some of the very best combat ever in a first-person shooter. From Mick Gordon's killer tracks to lightning-fast player speed and tough but fair combat encounters, the games have easily made their presence known beyond the legacy of the series. However, I don't think this was just a revitalization of the series, but for its developers as well. id Software's outings prior to Doom 2016, Rage and Doom 3 respectively, were met with generally positive reception, but nothing on par with what they had done back in the 1990s and would do after. And so that's the focus of this video, a thought that's been swirling around in my head for a very long time: how New Doom revitalized id Software. Simply put, id Software found itself in its own shadow come the 2000s. While they had literally reinvented the name of the game with Doom and Quake, Half-Life and Unreal Tournament had come up to bat and they weren't any slouch. The competition was now confidently neck and neck, if not outdoing id Software. And so Doom 3, a technical marvel for its time, was born, bringing back the king to reinvent the wheel. Doom 3 marked the shift away from classic titles. Instead of fast and frenetic gameplay, Doom 3 is more slow-paced, more about soaking in the environment. In short, it's a horror game more than an action game with a greater emphasis on narrative. It's not a bad game, but about monsters in closets rather than monster closets. Doom 3 is id's response to Half-Life. The narrative and physics engine-driven, industry-shattering classic from everyone's favorite Valve had not just impressive technology, but an interesting narrative to boot on top of its killer AI and gameplay, and that put the pressure on id Software to do the same. By this point, however, id's two Johns had split: the yin of Romero's ambitious ideas to push gaming forward and the yang of Carmack's technical wizardry to make it happen were no more. John and Ion Storm would go on to release the infamous Daikatana, a creatively ambitious but technically disastrous game, not having Carmack's mastermind behind its technology. So when Carmack went back to remake Doom with next-gen technology, the vision was more focused on the tech side than gameplay. They had to both match and exceed what Valve had just done with Half-Life, and they had gaming's Einstein to make it happen. Then 2 months later, Half-Life 2 came out and nuked it from orbit. It appears to me that id was more focused on trying to show that they were capable of making a game like Valve, rather than making a proper next-gen installment of Doom. Instead of playing to their strengths, they shifted to what the market was doing at the time. Like I said earlier, Doom 3 is not a bad game at all, but it doesn't play like a Doom game. It feels like it wants to be something it isn't, and the addition of a physics-based gun in Resurrection of Evil doesn't help the comparison. This adherence to what the market was producing was in stark contrast to the id of the 1990s. Doom and Wolfenstein birthed an entire genre out of not wanting to make a platform game, not wanting to do what the other guys were doing. In this way, Doom 3 showed that id Software had kind of lost touch with their founding ideals, and this set a dangerous precedent of following the herd instead of doing their own thing. Directed by Tim Willits and overseen by John Carmack, Rage released 7 years after Doom 3, and it was the debut of Carmack's latest and greatest, Mega Texture, in which the whole game is basically just one big texture. By this point in time though, some new players had entered the proverbial arena: Borderlands 1 back in 2009 and Fallout 3 back in 2008. Again, the landscape shifted and id went with the flow. Rage as a whole, it's fine. It still looks good in 2021 and the gunplay is serviceable, but it's in the Borderlands and Fallout influences that the game loses any identity and becomes just another milquetoast generic first-person apocalyptic shooter. Besides the late 2000s, early 2010s brown color palette coating everything, the game incorporates the open, post-apocalyptic world of Fallout and the car combat of Borderlands, along with side quests, which really just entail going to a previously explored area for some menial object. Oh, and it also features regenerating health.
Oh God, no! No!
As with Doom 3, the game serves as a tech demo, this time for Mega Textures, which, by Tech 7, largely gone. What's left is a stock standard open world shooter that is a jack of all, master of none. It's simply forgettable, only being remembered because it was made by the creators of Doom and Quake. It lacked the memorable music and rich environments and atmosphere of Doom 3, and it feels all in all like a very safe game. Doom 4 was next on the docket, but following the departure of Carmack in November 2013 and id studio head Tom Holland's head in the same year, the game, which we now know as Call of Doom, was rebooted in favor of a return to id's roots.
In 1993, a small studio named id Software made a first-person shooter called Doom that forever changed gaming.
What made id Software games so good back in the 90s? What was it about Wolfenstein, Doom, and Quake that made them a phenomenon? What separated id from the rest of the competition?
Badass demons, big effing guns, and moving really, really fast.
What things did Doom 3 not have?
Moving really, really fast.
What things did Rage not have?
Badass demons, big effing guns, and moving really, really fast.
While technological innovation and killer optimization have always been id staples, they were married to games that themselves were groundbreaking for the industry and lots of fun to play. With Doom 2016, they aimed to do just that in a way that many didn't expect. Rather than get with the times and make a boost jumping exosuit regenerating health FPS, it opted to bring back no health regen, no reloading, and fast player movement. Taking the glory kill mechanic from Brutal Doom and taking the 3 tenets of id from the 90s, infusing it with the right amount of humor, horror, and reverence, and Doom 3's industrial metal aesthetic, Doom 2016 up and surprised the entire gaming industry by not being the death bell of the series, but by being a supremely confident game that revitalized the series in a way unimagined. The combat?
Brutal, without mercy.
The demons.
You're breathtaking.
The guns.
Anyway, I started blasting. Bang, bang.
It wasn't just Doom that was back, but id Software themselves. The original Rockstar developers of the gaming industry were back with a new kind of confidence about them. With a blend of old school talent like Kevin Cloud, Tim Wills, and Marty Stratton, and new blood like Hugo Martin, Doom 2016 represented an unbridled return to form for a series and company that had been written off as past their prime. Id showed that they had a firm grasp on what it was that made them separate from the crowd back in the 90s, and how it would translate to make them separate from the crowd in modern times. And they weren't even close to being done yet.
Nothing but a usurper, a false idol.
If Doom 2016 was a supremely confident game, then Doom Eternal is a supremely confident game times 10k, finding a way to reinvent the wheel in a way that frankly shouldn't be possible. Rather than do the minimum and just make small changes to 2016 formula, id found ways to punch up player engagement, resource management with the flame belts and the free grenade and the chainsaw, a lower ammo pool, weak points, weapon mods that all have a use and can all be used interchangeably for each player to use and have their own kind of playstyle instead of relying on 1 or 2 weapons for the whole campaign. The fast speed and health packs from Doom 2016 were back, but the industrial metal aesthetic of Doom 3 was kind of toned down, and in its place was a near one-to-one rendition of classic Doom's art style. Though beloved, Doom Eternal has not been without its detractors, many lambasting the game as unbalanced and unfair. But rather than cave to those people, it gave the player base, the ones who have been playing the game since launch, what they wanted.
More weight. More weight. More. More.
Oh, you think the Marauder's too hard? Here's 2. Super Shotgun Ballista's overused. Okay, here's the Spirit, and when I possess the Demon, that combo, weak. Looks like you're gonna need to experiment with your mods and weapons more. Oh, it's just too hard? Lower the difficulty. And that's when I knew that id Software was well and truly back and in full strength. New Doom and the new regime over at id have done the founders proud. With id Tech 7, they continue Carmack's legacy of making industry-topping tech, and with Eternal and Doom 2016, they continue Romero's legacy of pushing the genre forward through gameplay innovation. And if they miss the mark, they acknowledge it, give reasons for it, and then they go to the community for how they can improve. Quite honestly, they are the best developers in gaming right now. By not trying to copy the competition, by recognizing what made them successful, id was able to get themselves back in the fun zone, pumping out FPS games that have always put the competition to shame, innovating in both tech and gameplay. On top of that, they've offered free support post-launch with 10 plus seasons of skins all for free and 2 proper campaign expansions. They have successfully married the old with the new, making them one of the last game developers out there who are at their core gamers making games. So happy 30th id Software, happy 5th Doom 2016, and happy 1st Doom Eternal, and here's to wherever y'all take us next.